Welcome to Emerge and Empower Podcast TV, a platform where resilience meets transformation. Here, we amplify voices that have faced trials, trauma, and adversity, stories that inspire hope, healing, and empowerment. Every episode brings raw, unfiltered conversations with individuals who have risen from hardship, embracing faith, strength, and purpose. Join us as we break the silence, uplift one another, and emerge stronger together. New episodes air Wednesdays at 6 p.m. English and Saturdays at 6 p.m. with select Saturdays in Creole for our Haitian audience.
Hey everyone, and welcome to season 5 of Emerge and Empower. Yay! I am excited. I'm excited for what God is doing in this new year as healing continues on the set and off the set because a lot of the work is done off and behind the scenes. So, welcome to Emerge and Empower Podcast TV with your host, yours truly, Dr. Lynn J. And we welcome you into this new year. We welcome you into this new season. We welcome you as this month is coming to a close, but we want it to come new, come fresh. Anything that you plan to do in the new year, do not let these last few days not find you already positioned, all right, for power. And I truly thank the Lord for what He has done. Oh my God, it has been tremendous. The feedback has been tremendous. And I've been able to collaborate with many of the guests, and some of them have been on the virtual conference. Some of them have also joined WeWa. WeWa is a women inspiring group we have that's called Women Inspiring Women Always, and we are looking for women globally to be ambassadors in WeWa. So if that is you or someone you know, just email mywewa@gmail.com, mywewa@gmail.com, and we'll be glad to have you so that we can collaborate and continue this sisterhood. So once again, this is Emerge and Empower with Dr. Lynn J. This is talk therapy, all right? Talk therapy. We continue beyond this where we have She Emergence mentorship for those who have gone through traumatic childhood and in relations to sexual trauma, and we help you through that journey through the She Emergence Let Go and Glow. Why? It's because we want you to heal for real, heal as a whole. All right. So on today, we have our very first guest in this new season, and I am excited so we can go through her story of transformation and change. Now, listen, change is not something that happens overnight. Many times we have to go into layers to receive healing. All right. So you have to be in the position for that. I want you to be intentional in 2026 for your healing, intentional in 2026 for your transformation, intentional in 2026. But key word, and I've said this in many sermons that I've brought coming into the new year, you need to be obedient. Obedience opens the door for your blessing. Follow the order. I've been teaching on Second Kings chapter 4 with the woman and her oil. When she went to the man of God because they were in debt, and before the husband passed, they were in debt. So thereafter, they came to get her sons to sell them into slavery to repay the debt. So she went to the man of God. And what did she ask the man of God? She said, the man of God, my husband, who was a servant, he died and he has the debt, and they came to get my sons. The man of God asked her, what do you have? I'm asking you, what do you have? And she says, nothing but a jar of oil. Well, it was enough for her miracle. It was enough for her breakthrough. And here's what happened. He says, okay, go and get as many jars as possible. Close your door and pour the oil. Those were the order. Go get the bottle. So her and her sons, they went looking for containers and jars to bring into the house. And once they had all the jars that they could gather, they shut the door. I need you to shut the door. Meaning, in a sense, you might have to shut your mouth so you can get your breakthrough, because not everyone needs to be privy to what God is about to do in your life. Okay. And so they closed the door. and she began to pour. And as she poured, the vessels filled and filled until every last one of them were filled with oil. Guess what? She said to the sons, "Is that it?" And he said, "Yes." And immediately the oil stopped pouring. Why? There was nothing else that had a capacity to receive what was being poured. I hope you get this on today. In order to be filled, you need to be in the capacity to receive. So, this platform is the capacity to talk about it so you can heal. All right. You want to heal? The first step starts with talk, sharing. And if talking isn't enough, you continue to the next step for a mentor. If it's not a mentor, then you go to a mental health coach or a psychiatrist, whoever it is that you need. But everything has to happen in steps and layers. So everyone that has come on this set in the past and the future, okay, they are telling you about their journeys, what they've gone through, what they've endured. And guess what? It is not where they are today, it's where they once were. They have emerged and they are here to tell their story. So we're going to have our next guest on today, Avonley, and I can't wait for you to see her. So stay tuned. You know what you need to do? Subscribe, subscribe, subscribe. Subscribe to our channel. Subscribe, subscribe. Go to Dr. Lynn J. But Emerge and Empower. You can find us on Apple, all of the podcast platforms, okay? And guess what? What's new? We are on TikTok. We just created a new page. Go follow us on TikTok because we're going to be putting those clips there. The magazine, come on, come on, come on. If you are in position for power, not just women, because we're looking for people who feel like they are in position, okay, for power to be on the cover and grace the inside story, all right? So there is so much in store for you, and I want you to be a part of this wonderful journey that God is doing in year three. Year three, can you believe it? 3 years of emerging in power. We're not even talking about all the other shows we did before or the affirmations we did before. 3 full years nonstop of emerge and empower. Listen, I want to celebrate you. I want to share your story. All right. So bring them on here to Emerge and Empower. So we'll be bringing our guests. Stay tuned. All right, everyone. So we are welcoming Avonlea back here. Welcome to the set on today. We are so glad that you are with us on Emerge and Empower. Woo! We are so happy. I'm excited. I'm elated. And why? Because this is a woman who has emerged, okay? She has emerged, she has gone forward, and she has a story to tell. Not only a testimony, but to talk about how she turned her pain into purpose. Avonlea, at this time, go ahead and introduce yourself to our viewing audience.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Lynn, for having me on your show and your wonderful intro. Um, my name is Avonley Lightstone. I am the author of Strength of Scars, and my story starts at a very young age where I've tried to save my mother from a house fire, and my father was drunk, passed out, and unresponsive. And that was just at the age of 3 years old. I like life just went upside down for me. So you just never know, like when life hits you hard, and it happens at any age in your life. And for me, that started at a very young age where I was completely separated lost my family in India and then was adopted into a family here in Utah. That is
Wow.
the start of my
Wow.
journey.
Wow, wow. And that no one ever thinks about a child saving a parent versus it's usually the other way. The parent goes in to save the child, but God give you enough strength in you that you had, were able to do so. So let's take us to your journey. We're gonna start from the beginning as to who is Avonlea.
Avonlea is a person that's me that's survived. I'm a survivor. And I went through so much in my life where I could have just looked at my life in such a horrible way and become a victim of the traumas that I went through. But
Mhm,
instead, I decided to choose a different route of prosperous and just using my journey as a tool of God's testimony.
mhm.
And so that's where I'm at right now. Mm-hmm.
Wow, wow. So, we're gonna go dive right into your story and take us to, as far as you can remember in your childhood, where this journey came about, and how it was for you growing up, and then before this fire incident, right? For example, and take us through that child, that little girl that endured. What were her thoughts at that time? How old were you?
Okay, so before all the tragic happened to me, I was 3 years old. So my setting, um, I had a big family in India, 9 siblings total. So my parents had a lot of kids.
Mm-hmm,
But I do remember being raised Catholic, and my mom was very nurturing, and she was
mm-hmm,
able to distribute her love to all of her children evenly. And like, the older kids would be one to help the younger kids. And I was fairly little, and I just kind of like was a child and just tagging along with my mother, seeing what I could do to help out. And that was just
mm-hmm.
like my lifestyle. It's just living the childhood life. And I didn't realize, my, as a child, you don't really recognize the hardship that your parents go through.
Right.
And my dad, he we had a lot of kids, and he didn't have a, the best of job to raise us children,
Mm-hmm,
and so he was drinking a lot just to cope with what
mm-hmm.
he was going through.
Right.
And it just happened to be that one day my all my family were gone to school, and my grandparents had taken my baby sister. So I was left at home with my mother, cooking food, and her sorry caught on fire.
Wow.
And she just started screaming. And I just remember feeling so like concerned about my mom, because children, they don't usually hear their mother screaming or
Mm-hmm,
crying for
mm-hmm,
pain. Um, and so that's what I did. I just went and tried to get the help that she needed. And my dad was home, but he was drunk, like
mm-hmm,
passed out in response. It just wouldn't budge. So in my heart, I knew like I needed to do something. So I remember just going and holding her legs as tight as I could. And she
mm-hmm,
was just trying to push me away, because, the situation was dangerous. She didn't want me to be
yes.
harmed. And I just wouldn't let her go. And pretty soon I was consumed with fire. So I got my burns on my back. And
Wow.
next thing I do remember, I was then taken to the hospital, and I didn't have any sort of like morphine, any numbing agents to kind of help numb what I went
Wow.
through, but they had to scrub the
Mm-hmm.
clothes off my back and my
Wow.
leg. And that was, I remember like that was worse than being caught on fire. I
Wow.
was just, it's so much pain because your body, what it's
Yeah.
trying to do is It knows when it is under attack and it's
Mm-hmm.
hurt. So it's going to do what it needs to like bump up that healing. And
Right.
things like taking granted for like oxygen, like you could feel the oxygen in your skin, things that we take
Mm-hmm.
for granted. I
Mm-hmm.
could
Mm-hmm.
just feel those in every cell. And it
Wow.
was like the worst sensation, worst feeling. And I remember feeling I want to go back into that fire because there's a point where the fire just hits a nerve and it just goes numb and you can
Right. Right.
deal with the pain easier. And this way, it was the opposite. Like my body was trying to recover and it was
Mm-hmm.
painful
Mm-hmm.
and I was like so much pain. I'm like, no. But I had to like be scrubbed out and they just scrubbed my back, my legs to take all the burnt clothing off of me.
My
And after they cleaned
goodness.
me up, I was laid out on like cot because
Mm-hmm.
like as you can see my face, like my chest wasn't burned. So I laid on a cot to just air dry, just to
Wow.
heal that way.
My
Um,
goodness.
3 days after, so my mom, she was right next to me. She was completely burned and she didn't last. She ended up passing away 3 days
Oh,
after
I'm sorry to hear that. I
the
was about to
accident.
ask you about your mom. Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah, she was just
So that's yet
completely
another
covered.
pain that you are dealing with as well. Because now not only are you physically in pain, but now emotionally you're going through it because now your mom isn't there. So that's like double.
Yeah, it's so hard. And after my mom passed away, my dad, he stopped checking up on me to see if
Wow.
I was okay. So I was there in the hospital recovering, and my family didn't come to see me. And I felt rejected right there. And so
I'm
people
sure.
ask me,
I'm
like, how
sure.
do you remember? Yeah, how do you remember so much information and vivid memories of your past? You're so
Hmm.
young. But when you feel rejected and abandoned and you go through so much trauma at such a
Yes.
young age all at once, um,
Yes.
it gave me time during the time I was healing to remember. I was taking in memories of my mother, what had
Hmm.
happened. So it was being imprinted into my soul. And that is how I was able to like remember a lot of stuff because my dad rejected me and he didn't come check up on me and nurture me as a young child. And
And
so what I
that was
replaced that
needed.
with, it's definitely needed. Um, and that is how someone copes with their pain. You know, we got to remember that people cope with pains differently,
Yes.
and
Yes.
it's not always the best. It's not, and I wish people can really understand and take mental health more seriously because your
Yes.
mental health can affect people, your family members, people that are looking out for you, that
Yes.
sees you. It can affect them emotionally. And so it's really important that we take care of our mental health. And for as my dad, he drowned himself in, like alcohol. That was his
Right.
way of coping and moving through the day. And he just couldn't handle seeing me. And so, yeah. And once I recovered from the hospital, I then was taken to pay respects to my mother because I wasn't at her funeral.
Right.
So we went to this Catholic church, and I was like Mowgli style. I was still healing in my blue underwear, went to the church, said a prayer. And then, even right after that, I was so excited to be with my family, but I was
Hmm.
taken away to the orphanage. So I didn't have
Wow.
time to um, see my siblings, just regain what I missed.
Right, because now
I
your
didn't
mom
have
is
that.
gone.
So
So this is
again,
a
I felt
time where you needed your family so you could be with your siblings and heal.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. So I wasn't making any sense of all the why my dad was making the choices that he was making. Next
Hmm.
thing I know, I was being taken away from my entire family to the orphanage, just all because he just couldn't handle looking at me and seeing that as a reminder of what had happened.
Yeah.
And so I then was in the orphanage for 2 weeks before I saw my dad come back again with 3 of
Hmm.
my other siblings.
Oh,
And
he brought
instead,
them to the orphanage or to visit you.
yeah, no, after 2 weeks, he dropped them off to be
Oh,
also
wow.
adopted.
Wow. Wow.
And I think at that point, he just couldn't, there was so much stress. He just couldn't
Hmm.
afford to care for the younger kids, whereas the older ones, they were much older. They can fend for themselves and take care of
Hmm.
themselves.
Hmm.
So he ended up putting 3 of my siblings up for adoption as well.
Wow.
So at
Wow.
least that was a little comforting. After
Right.
being in the orphanage for 2 weeks, I was able to see my
See
siblings.
them. Hmm.
And that was the start of my journey. Yep.
Well,
So
what I
yeah, so
see
that
here
was
is your father obviously survived it. Your other siblings, they either weren't home, but everyone else survived. So it was you and your mom that were, the ones that went through this trauma. You survived it, your mom didn't. Then you go through abandonment when a child needs to be loved. Because when you're in a position in a hospital, you need to be looked on, cared upon, visited. Even if they didn't stay at the hospital, but at least come by and visit and see you. That was gone. Then you lose your mom. So you're going through all of these emotions. And as children, people might say children can be resilient, but at the same time, when you don't have anything else, you understand? So now you're dealing with the
yeah.
pain. So you, of course, you're focusing, you're going through all the motions of the pain, because what I can say is my mom went through an incident like that in the Bahamas where she had third and fourth degree burns, right? To her upper part of her body. I
Mhm.
wasn't there to witness this because I live in the state and she was in the Bahamas, but she spent months in the hospital, all right, going through this pain, getting infection in the hospital, okay, and having to deal with that, then go home and haven't fully healed. And even her eyes were affected, so her eyelids stayed open, you understand? So even for sleep.
Right.
So these are all the things. So I understand when you talk about the burns and the scrubbing and all that she went through. It was horrendous. It was awful. You understand? Then later on for them to do skin grafts, from parts of her body that was
Mhm.
not burned to put on her face and arms and such. So it's very painful. So I'm sure you had to go through some of these graftings as well, right? Gradually.
Actually, I didn't. So,
Okay.
like, yeah, I didn't because they didn't just have the technology in India. But when I did get
Oh.
adopted, the doctors did recommend that, but my mom refused to have me skin
Okay.
grafted.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
But yeah, so that was like how it happened. And in the orphanage, I was, you know, you're groomed to be ready for your families in
Right.
America. They tell us like, hey, you got to forget your family in
Mm-hmm.
India, your culture. You have to start picking up English and
Mm-hmm.
picking up like the American etiquette.
Right.
So yeah, we just kind of forgot everything. Well, we were told to forget, and once we started figuring out
They were
like
trying to
what the
recondition your minds.
yeah, exactly. And we would see like people come in and pick up their children and bring toys and goodies. So we started seeing visually, oh, this is how it's going to be. And
Mm-hmm.
so
Mm-hmm.
we started getting excited. Okay, to get out of this place, we need to be able to go to a family that wants us.
Right.
And that's when my mom saw an ad in the newspaper. She heard about my story. She saw the burns on me, and she was like, okay, that's the girl that I want in our home, where
Mm-hmm.
she can feel loved and cared for. And so she decided to adopt me and also bring 2 of my other siblings into
Oh,
the
that
same
was
household.
wonderful. Yes.
Yeah. And then my baby sister, she wasn't able to come with us because she was a baby and my parents were much older, already have a lot of other children on in their hands.
Okay.
And so they were like, no. the baby would be better suited with a family that really wants
And care
a
for a baby.
baby. And
Yes.
yeah. And so we were separated from her, but that is how we were able to come to America. It was my mom saw the ad in the newspaper, and next thing we know is we met up with my father in New York, where we made the exchange. So they
Okay.
dropped us off in New York with him, and then we flew out to Utah. And
Okay.
that was
Okay.
like my journey.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So
So
how long were you
I
in
would
the
say like
orphanage before you were adopted?
I would say probably a couple years, because I was like 6 years old. So I was 3 years old when I went through the fire, and then I had to heal, which takes a few months, right? A
Mm-hmm.
while for me to recover before I was released. And then I was into the orphanage for a couple more years before I was then adopted. And I was adopted at the age of 6. So I just barely had
Wow.
turned 6 years old.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So basically, coming to United States, you actually was ready for kindergarten, first grade, and all of that because that would be the age for it. So that would have been
Yep.
a smoother transition for you versus if you were much older and have to adapt and all of that. So while you were in the orphanage, they were already conditioning, preparing you guys for being adopted in the States, or for teaching you the language. So your other siblings were older than you, obviously, right? The other two that they took on. Okay.
Yep. So my oldest biological sibling, she was 9 years old when she came to America. So
Okay.
she was much older, and she did have a little bit more difficult time.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. 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 So you go through all of this, and now you've been adopted into a family. All right. Because being at 3 years old, having to see your father being an alcoholic, and then you go through this with your mom. So now you still try to figure out a sense of belonging, or what love is, what
Mhm.
affection is. So how did this transition for you once you came to the United States?
Yeah. So for me, I transitioned very well. Just because I think during the time I was in the orphanage by myself, in the hospital by myself, I was
Mm-hmm.
lonely, and so like I had time to like know that I was rejected. And so when I saw kids getting new parents, I saw that the parents were loving on these children.
Mm-hmm.
So
So you long
at
for
that
that.
point, I just knew that I did. So I knew like when once I saw my mother that I was already taken with her. Me and my siblings, we were
Mm-hmm.
actually pretty taken with her, and actually loved her instantly, and my family. So we kind of like blended fairly well and fairly quickly. However, my parents had adopted 14 children. Just a little background.
Oh,
My
14.
adopted parents, yeah. So they had adopted 14 total. They had already raised three older brothers, and by the time they adopted the rest of us children, so they were already out of the home. So just that's just kind of a little backstory.
Okay.
Um, the older boys, they had gone through a lot of abuse too,
Okay.
um, with my mother, and
Wow.
I think I just don't know, like it's kind of a dysfunction with my mom. So
Wow.
when we were adopted, um, my sister, my parents adopted a lot of young babies. So I was fairly older, out of the rest of the 11 children.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and my parents had a lot of children. So naturally, my older sister, she started taking on helping my mom with the
Responsibility. Yeah.
babies and stuff. And my mom didn't like that. Yeah. And because she learned that in the orphanage, and when we
Right.
were when I was younger, and family home. Well, my mom didn't like that. She didn't like that my sister was helping with the younger siblings. And so she started like resenting her and pushing her away. And my sister,
Why?
she's
She's
9 years
actually
old,
helping.
trying to make
It's weird.
sense. Yeah, it is weird. And, that's all she knows what's best is, okay, this is what I need to do is help the kids,
Right.
make it a little easier. And she did.
Yes.
And then, yeah, my mom just kept rejecting her and she didn't know how to react from it. And the
Mm-hmm.
more my mom rejected her, the more outspoken my sister Violet got. She started becoming
Mm,
more outspoken and started saying stuff like, "You're not my mom. You're not
right.
my mom. I want to go home." Because my mom rejected her or rejected any of her help. And that was my sister's way of like trying to mesh in and
Right. And
find
cope.
love in that. And yeah, exactly. And it really set my sister off when um, my mom's favorite child ended up starting to babysit. And she was a lot younger than my sister Violet, 4 years younger.
Wow.
And my mom would have her babysit Violet too. And my sister was like, no, I can take care of myself. And
Mm-hmm.
started voicing her concern and her opinion and kept rejecting my mother and saying, no, you're not my mom. And my
Wow.
mom just started getting under her skin, and started like pushing my sister away, getting her into trouble. And then whenever she voiced her concern, I would start getting into trouble for any
Wow.
time she would
Because she's
raise
your
her
relative,
voice and stuff.
so take it out on
Yeah,
someone else, unfortunately.
yeah, exactly. And it was really hard. And it just got to the point where my mom would like start like resenting how strong opinionated my sister Violet was,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
that she didn't need my mom at that point. She's like, I can handle this. And my mom really disliked that because she loves having her children be dependent on her.
And
And so when
control.
she saw that my sister wasn't, mhm, was hard to control, she started like hurting her, abusing her emotionally and physically. I remember she would molest her in front of me because
Wow.
during that time, my sister started hitting puberty.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
and like the boys gravitated towards her. And my mom didn't like that. And so she pretty much like ripped her clothes and started molesting her
Molesting.
right in front of me.
Wow.
Uh-huh. And I didn't know what to do with all that because
Mm-hmm.
my sister wasn't doing anything at those times. She was
Mm-hmm.
just, being a girl that was trying to fit in and just, move around or whatever.
Right.
And my
Right.
mom just gets triggered by her. And so I would
It's
also
like
then
trauma after
get punished.
trauma. You come from one traumatic event into another. So
Hmm.
when life is supposed to be getting better, it's like now you're dealing with a different type of trauma, for a child to be
Yeah.
going through. I want to put a pause here for people to understand that when children are being adopted, they're being adopted because they're seeking love. They're coming from an environment where someone wasn't loving on them. So most people, and I can say in America, when they adopt a child, it's about the buck and the money that they're receiving, that check that they're receiving. So they stop caring for the child as a whole. If you're going to get children that are hurt and have gone through trauma and traumatic experience, and you're going to bring them in, especially like in your case, you went through burn, you need love, you need tender loving care and attention. So, and someone is going to adopt 14 children. All right. Most people will say, oh, that person must be very compassionate. But in most cases, that is not the case. These children are being subject to so much pain. All right. And for a child who whose mannerisms is to love and to cope, and now instead of receiving that as support and encouraging that, now you turning on that child. You understand? So there is no love there. You just give them a place to live, take them out of one environment only to bring the children into a toxic environment. And this is what happens, and this trickles off into our cities and into our community. So you have broken children already broken from a child, and this continues into their life, this cycle. All right, so you've already seen your father being drunk, you already seen your mom get burned, she passed, you're sick, you're in pain, brought into another situation that's supposed to be the dream, right? Because to come to America is supposed to be the American dream. And now again, dealing with sexual trauma. That's what that is. Okay? That is a lot. You may continue.
Yeah, it is a lot. Exactly what you said, Dr. Lynn. There, a lot of the kids in my family, they were really good kids. But it's the environment that my mom created, the system, she wanted to be in control. And she allowed certain kids to be the favorite, and she gave like this a lot of children. And so these other children that looked and see, oh, this is how we need to behave to receive our mom's love, and we'll do anything in our power to do what we can. And it becomes dysfunctional because we
Yes.
start becoming like a pecking order. We go against
Mm-hmm.
one another, and we will like throw a child under a bus just to like gain some sort of love and recognition. Hey, mom, are you happy that I said this? And it just becomes really toxic. And honestly,
Very
it didn't even
toxic.
help me in that case. It didn't matter like if I whatever power I did, any
Mm-hmm.
like happiness that I had, it was like taken away. It was like she just didn't want some of us to be happy. And she like took that, and she really wanted us to not not be independent. So we were taught how to stay clean and getting ourselves ready for America, American
Mm-hmm.
family. So that's kind of like what we brought into this new family is we made sure our beds were clean. We made sure
Right.
beds were made, our rooms were clean, our bathroom like chores were done. We
Right.
were really good about that, and we went ahead and did it. That really set my mom off many times when she would come into my
Which
room
is a good thing.
and
It
she'd
should be a
see my
blessing.
yeah, she would rip the my closet apart, throw all my stuff on the ground, and said, "Now you need to clean your room. It's messy." And it was
Wow.
like I think I was so confused because it's like I was taught to be clean, and
Right.
now this is what you're trying to say is like it's messy. Now you want it to be
She's
clean,
dysfunctional,
like it
period.
was.
She's has underlying issues herself, because it seems like I think they should do psychological evaluations for people before they adopt children.
Yeah,
Seriously.
absolutely, I do think so. And we lived in a rural area where my mom was very well known in the community. And this is where like people, there's a myth where people that are well known in a community or have well status in like a job doesn't
Mm-hmm.
always mean that they're like perfect or they're good people.
No.
A lot of times behind closed doors, these people are abusive. And
Yes.
so, and that's exactly how she was. She was well known in the community, provided her volunteering stability within the
Mm-hmm.
church. So people saw how much caring and uh, contribution that she provided in the community. And so they saw
Mm-hmm.
that she was really helpful. But behind closed doors, she wasn't. I struggled, however, with school when I was younger. And that's because I came with 8 different dialects. And so having to learn like mathematics was really a struggle for me because
Mm-hmm.
there's different symbolism in different languages,
Right.
and so just English was completely different, and so I was getting a lot of like numbers mixed up, and I was dyslexic, And my
Mm-hmm.
teachers would tell my mom, like, hey, she's getting behind in school. And rather than having my mom help me, she would take me down in the basement and give me homework after I had been in school all day, give me more homework
Wow.
that was above my grade level and say, no, you can't come up and you can't eat until you get this work done. And I couldn't get that work done because I didn't know how, and she didn't sit down and explain things to me. And
Wow.
so
Wow.
here
So
I'm
that
just
means you weren't
crying, trying
eating
to
most
figure
of the time.
yeah, I actually wasn't. A lot of my punishments were me being sent to my room if I didn't end up doing my lessons right, sent to my room for 3 days without food or water
Oh my goodness.
because I was behind in school. But it wasn't that I wasn't a smart kid. I just really needed that
You needed
extra
help.
attention. Yeah. And so, and that was just like her way of punishing. And there was just a lot more abuse that had happened. And she figured out like
Hmm.
the physical abuse is something I could tolerate. Like, for instance, she would spank me with a board when I was just having a good time with my siblings, just having fun and laughing. And she just had a rage and spanked me with a board that had nails in it. But I was
Wow.
able to tolerate pain. And so she found a way to mastermind a way to get at me, like a different form of abuse. And for
Right.
her, for me, it was emotional. So she was able to isolate me because that is when I really took it more seriously.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up like forming like self-sabotaging myself, my mind, thinking like, why am I not good enough for her? I
Wow.
shouldn't be alive. So I started thinking like suicidal tendencies and thoughts at such a young age because I
Yeah.
just didn't understand why I was brought into a home where I
Mm-hmm.
was told that it was going to be a loving home, and it was far from a
It
loving
wasn't.
home. And it wasn't in a healthy environment. My parents ended up adopting two more children after a few years that I was adopted. And within 6 months of them being adopted, my younger brothers started raping them. And I
Wow.
remember
Because
catching
he was
them
dealing
and
with that
telling my
abuse. Trust me.
sister, my,
He was dealing with that
mm-hmm,
abuse because
yeah,
children who are being abused end up abusing others. You understand? Because that was a pattern
yeah,
that was in the home. All right. And this very disruptive. So this is what happened. Maybe you didn't see it, but obviously it was happening to him because these things are learned behaviors, you know.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Wow.
So I remember them taking my sisters into the woods and threatening them with a knife and saying, if you just say anything, I will slice your. They were young. They were
Wow.
young acting this way. And I went and told my mom. It took a lot of guts for me to like go in and knock on her door and tell her like, hey, here's a dangerous situation that the
Mm-hmm.
brothers are doing. You need to like take action. No, she didn't. She just got really upset with me, told me to go to my room, and that was it. And so over time, they continue to do these action on my siblings,
Oh
and my
my
poor one
gosh.
of my sister ended up getting a urinary tract infection, and she was much older. She was like 9 years old when she was adopted. Got urinary tract infection after like 8 months into her being adopted, and my mom, instead of helping her get diapers for her or whatever, if she
Mm-hmm.
just didn't think that they were raping her and that she has a bladder
Wow.
problem, because that's what she would say is she has bladder problem. She has a tiny bladder, ways that they gaslight you into
Right, right.
thinking like, oh, this
Gaslighting.
child just yeah, and don't really think about what's really actually the
Mm-hmm.
cause of it. So she never gave her like any like diapers to kind of help this child out. And we would have to get up early in the morning to catch the bus. And she would make my sister go out in the creek and wash her clothes that she peed in and the bedding, and before she could even go to school.
Wow.
And
Wow.
so she couldn't even like properly clean herself, so she smelled like pee.
Wow.
And it was just really sad. It was just like a really sad environment.
Mm-hmm.
And the way like I coped with it was I tried to stay away from my mom. I figured out she was a dangerous person to even try
Right.
to be around. So
Yeah.
I just became silent. I tried my best to hide in the shadow, try not to be seen, even
Right.
with my
Not draw
siblings,
attention to
because
yourself, because drawing attention to yourself meant punishment, meant you are dealing with a little bit more.
yeah, exactly. So that's I kind of withdrew from my mom, try to hide. I grew up on a ranch where it was a cattle ranch and we had horses, cows and cats, just farm animals. And I gravitated towards those animals and they're like healing in so many ways. I
Right.
loved being
Right.
around horses and once I figured out like how healing it was, I started going out with my dad to help him out on the ranch because my dad was a really good guy, but he
Well, did
himself
he
was
know? Did these
also
things
being
happen behind the scenes? Was he not aware of what was going on in the home? Because if he's in the home and these are going on, I would think, there's got to be a parent here, that's saying, hey, this shouldn't happen. Was he even aware of what was happening?
yeah, I think to an extent he knew a little bit of what was going on, but I think he also was being abused, emotionally abused by my mother in a way where she would say like stuff like, "Hey, if you do this, and I'm going to divorce. I'm going to take all your stuff." And my dad worked so hard to build his ranch and his business, and he
Wow.
just didn't want it to be taken from him. So he actually would just get up really early and never come back home until like later in the
It's all
evening. So he
avoidance.
didn't see a lot of things. Yeah, he did see a lot of things that were happening. So I would actually get up early. Me and my sisters, we would get up early and go with him because
It
he was
made
our safe
sense.
person.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we would go with him. We started like working on the ranch. We started loving it, and my mom started seeing how much we loved it, and that he would take us to our grandparents' house, and we loved our grandparents. She started seeing how happy we were, that she
Mm-hmm.
started like I had mentioned earlier. She'll take any good things that you enjoy and
Right. And turn
pretty
it.
much break it and yeah, just destroy it. So then it's not like you're not having any good times.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So she ended up saying things like, "Hey, you are doing things like there's so many people are talking in town about you and dad doing things, sexual things." And we
Oh
had a
my
helper that
goodness.
I grab it. He was like a father to me. He would never like lay a hand on me.
Right.
He was just a good guy.
Mm-hmm.
He was rough and all, but he was just a great guy. And yeah, my mom would say stuff like that, and it just got to the point where I was already insecure myself at this point, and I did not want my dad to like think like he would get in trouble for something he didn't do.
Right.
So I
Right.
I backed off. I'm like, okay, I'll back off for his own safety. And
Mm-hmm.
really, it just ruined me because I never really could have that relationship with this helper that always helped us my dad out
Mm-hmm.
on the ranch. I never ever have a relationship with him again because I really thought people were talking really like ill about what was happening,
Right. And it's
which
the things
never
that she made
happened.
up. She made it up.
Mhm. Yeah, she did make it up, and
She
it just
found a
became
very
so
miserable
toxic.
soul. She's a miserable soul.
She was. And so, like, at this point, I was in junior high, high school, and needed to, wanted to do sports, but I wouldn't do sports because my mom didn't like sports. She would say that's being rebellious. Well, one of the coaches saw potential in me in sports and asked my mom, like, hey, could she do sports? And she's like, no, I'm not going to allow it. And he's like, kept asking. And finally, she's
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, you can, but I'm not going to be in charge of her.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up doing sports. And during the time I would stay after for practices,
Mm-hmm.
I would get rumors spread within my family saying that I wasn't actually doing sports, that I was actually doing stuff with boys, and I'm like, I'm not doing that. I'm not even thinking that way. I really just love being active and doing sports because it took me away from my family and the
Right, right.
household that I was, and it was really hard to come home because I would stay and do sports until like 6 or 7 o'clock practices, and then it's like an hour to travel home, and my mom would refuse to allow me to eat, so I couldn't eat
Wow.
when I got home, and I was so tiny. I was like 69 pounds when I was in seventh grade
I can
because I
imagine.
wasn't eating, and she was refusing to. She was using food as a way to punish me, like you're not going to eat.
Right, right.
And so I
So,
was
but
super
you
skinny,
had lunch. You had
and
like the school lunch and the school breakfast.
yeah, I did. And no, I didn't have school breakfast, but I would get up early. Like I would wait until school lunch around 12 o'clock, um, and that was like my time to
That was your
eat
main
was during
meal.
that time frame. And so I've ended up accumulating a lot of like health problem, like
Of
anorexia,
course.
bulimia, just because of like the situation in my
Yes.
uh, household. It's never healthy. It isn't healthy because even to this day, I could still eat one meal a day and be
Right.
set. And that is not healthy. It's not nutritious for your body. It's not a
Right.
way for your body to like cope and heal. Um,
Well,
and
I can
so
relate. I can
that
relate
that
to
is
that.
one.
I remember growing up that way because sometimes you'll go weeks without food because my mom couldn't afford it and we, the siblings, didn't have the food. So it came to a point even in my adulthood, I find that I could eat one meal and I'm okay, or sometimes I realize I didn't eat because these tendencies already happen. I used to have, I don't know about you, I used to have headaches all the time, uh dizzy, blackout, all of these things because of, malnutrition brings sickness in the body because the cells in your body is
That.
starving. So it's creating something else, you understand, in you. And plus you were doing sports and not eating. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really hard. And I was always trying to find ways to not be at home. So I started working very young. I would take on 3 jobs, and all the paychecks I made, um, I would save it, but it never went to me. And my mom ended up using it. So by the time I
Wow.
went and left home, I never saw the money that I wanted for college
So
to help sustain me. I never
how
saw
old were
that.
you when you finally left home?
So after I graduated from high school, so I was 17
Okay.
when I
Okay.
graduated and left home, went to college. Yeah, and
Okay. Okay.
that was hard.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I think what's one blessing of being in this home was I was able to know God. Like I said, we were in a religious home, LDS home, and at least I didn't understand in that teaching. They're very
Wait,
prominent
these
of like
people
family.
were Christians?
Yeah.
Oh my
Yes.
gosh.
Yeah, I
Wow.
know. It's hard. And so yeah, that's
Wait,
one of those
they
things
went,
I would
listen,
fight in my.
listen, people go to church. Doesn't mean they are Christian because the things that she was doing were not Christianly. I'm sorry. She went to
Absolutely
church.
not.
Okay, she went to church. Maybe her parents took her to church. She went to church. And I'm sure the sermons are always talking about how to love on each other, take care of each other, be kind. Hello, treat people well.
Mm.
One of the rules that Jesus said was do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. Obviously, none of that seemed to have been sinking in because how can you raise children in a so called godly home and they go through all of these abuse?
Yeah,
Not
but
Christian.
I think what's really was a dysfunction is she would quote those things like "Do
Oh
unto
my
others what they would do
gosh.
unto you." Would quote
My
those,
goodness.
and it would hurt me so much because I'm like, oh, I'm
This
this
this is
bad
enough to
person
make you as a child
because
say
that's
forget about Christianity because it sure didn't heal me or help me. You understand? Like
Yeah,
I don't want the God that this person is serving because she's evil. My
yeah,
goodness.
I know that, and I knew that at a very young age. I was seeing the hypocrisy that she was like in her
Definitely.
teaching and the way she was. I'm like, okay, like the teachings is like families can be together forever in the afterlife. So I really like the idea, but like, don't you want to like engage in like a healthy family lifestyle while you're on this
Hmm.
earth? So
Right.
then it's the same way in heaven. And that's like in my mind, I'm like, this is not adding up. Like, does she not want us as family? Like, it was just so like um,
Ooh.
confusing in many ways. And I would just like look at her and try to wonder, like, how can we be like God and but you are completely different in
No,
this way? Like, how can you show love? Like, it
no.
wasn't making sense to me. So I just let her be, and I started building a relationship with God myself. I
Right.
started
Which is wise.
recognizing I started recognizing just how much God loved me during those
Hmm.
times when I was first
In the midst of
adopted.
all
I
of that, in
remember,
spite of all of that.
yeah, I remember praying and asking God, like, why did you save me? Like,
Right.
those are the questions a lot of people ask, like,
Right. Of
why me?
course.
Why me?
Of course.
And now I look back and say, like, why not? I'd rather be the person that my mom hurt and cause the pain than having any of my siblings go through it, because I would never want any of my siblings or anyone to go through that. So now I just say, like, why not? Like, I rather go through that than someone else. And because
That is
I chose to
something,
look at,
yeah, that is something that a lot of children say, let this happen to me so it doesn't happen to the sibling, because, you're preaching to the choir here. Because
hmm,
we feel like if you could take it on for somebody else, that's the innocence of a child. But it doesn't stop them from doing it too. In our innocent mind, we think it is, but on the contrary, they're still doing these evil to the siblings and to the sisters and to the brothers. Avonlea, I feel like we haven't really gotten into the depth of your story, so we got to come back for part two, everyone. So I'm calling in. We're coming back for part two because after all of this, you know what? Your story still continues, right? Your story still continues. So we're gonna
hmm,
we're gonna cut here before you move out of the house, okay? So we can just gonna close off on this section. I'm thankful that you found God. I'm thankful that you looked to Him for help. I'm thankful that you prayed to Him and say, I don't know why I went through all of this, because I believe now this has been your testimony, part of your story, right? And then when we come back, we'll get into the purpose. But before we close, because you were young enough to leave, so your sister, of course, left before you did, correct?
yeah, she did. And like, again, that's like a wild story too, because um, she became homeless. Like, my mom, like, pushed her out of the house at like 16, and she didn't know. I think she was 15 or 16. She was really young, and she was just roaming the streets in the place that we would go to school. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and like a lot of people just thought like she just didn't want to go. Like, that gaslighting story that
Yeah,
my mom
yeah.
would say to the community, and people would just assume like she was rebellious. No, and it
So
wasn't.
so
So
they
like,
said she's
yeah,
a
her
bad
story
kid, so she don't
went
get
in
any
like a different
help.
direction. Hmm.
Wow.
So she was just like hanging out with friends here and there, and then pretty soon, like her friends would like, hey, you got to go back home. Eventually, you got to go back home. And she couldn't go back home because my mom wouldn't allow her to come back home. She would just
Right.
sleep out on the baseball field, or try to like sneak into the school to take a shower. She would ask me to bring like clothes to her. But yeah, she was
Oh,
actually
wow.
homeless. And my finally my dad was like, I need to get her to a place. So he called my uncle up and asked if
Mm.
he would be willing to take my my sister, and he was like, only if you give me some meat, and you give me a little bit of money here and there to
Right.
keep her, is the only reason that he would take her.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't even when she was in that new environment, which happens to be my mom's brother. She wasn't
Wow.
in like a safe place in that home.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you went through this, your sibling went through this, and all of the children that was left in her care that went through this. So we're gonna come back for part two, everyone, because we cannot say it all here in one sitting. We can't do that. So we'll resume and we'll continue with part two. So I would like for you to stay tuned for it in Avonlea. I thank you for your courage and I thank you for the strength that you allowed God to give you so that you can wake up every day, even though you had the suicidal tendencies and thoughts. But you know what? Today, this is a testimony. And my dear, you indeed have emerged. All right. You are indeed someone who have emerged and have a lot to say. You're a beautiful soul and have a lot to still give into the community. Everyone, we'll be back with Avonlea. So you stay tuned. All right, everyone. We have to bring it back. We cannot rush the sessions. We cannot rush the stories of individuals when they have to share. Because remember, this is talk therapy, and we have to allow people to be able to share and continue their journey to healing. If you find Avonlea relatable, please respond in the text message, inbox me, and we can get in touch with her and her services, and we can continue from there. Listen, this is people emerging. You see what she has come from, and this is not even the most of it. But we thank God that she got to this point and she can talk about it. So I want to thank you for watching Emerge and Empower, where we have real stories and true healing that happen. And stay tuned for next time. Bye bye.